Billiards, or pool, is generally considered to have originated as an outdoor lawn game in Europe around the late 14th or early 15th century. Lawn games played with balls and sticks were generally enjoyed by the nobility, who had the advantage of having huge lawns on which to play such games. The upper class could also move their favorite games inside when winter came. But once inside, bending over to pick up the balls was so tedious that the games were moved up onto tables. The first mention of the indoor game was in 1470, where a list of the household possessions of France's King Louis XIV speaks of billiard balls and a billiard table. While bankrupting France during the building of Versailles, the king enjoyed snookering his friends as well. The word billiard is derived from the French bille, or ball. The sticks, called maces, were used to shove the balls around rather like shuffleboard. The game was played with 2 balls on a 6-pocket table and a hoop not unlike a croquet wicket. Men were allowed to use the straight cue, while women, being considered too flighty to be trusted with such a formidable weapon, were made to use the mace. Even Mary, Queen of Scots, was said to have passed her long hours awaiting her execution playing billiards in her prison cell. History doesn't tell us if she coined the phrase, being behind the 8-ball. Shakespeare, in 1600, mentions billiards in Antony and Cleopatra. Cleopatra suggests billiards to her servant Charmaine, but as smart employees have done ever since, Charmaine tells Cleo that her arm is too sore to play, thus not risking beating the boss. By the 1700s, the table was dressed with green cloth to remind players of the grassy plains and the great outdoors. Unfortunately, a long period of smoky, crowdy pool halls came and went. Thus, this verdant allusion to nature has since escaped us. Pool was also considered by some to be a genteel way to pass the time. In fact, the ladies of the day in the early 1800s were invited to attend the finer public billiard rooms in an attempt to better display their charms. Men soon learned that women too could master the game. By the mid-18th century, the extra hoops and sticks had disappeared. In 1823, a French political prisoner, Captain Mingot, invented the leather cue tip. This innovation allowed the player to make the cue ball spin and have greater accuracy over the game. Being a perfectionist, Mingot asked for more prison time to further develop his invention and his game. At roughly the same time, Jack Carr, an employee of a billiard room in Bath, England, made a startling discovery. Rubbing the leather tip with chalk seemed to impart magical powers to his cue and to his game. Onlookers said he put an English on the ball. Thus is the origin of the billiard term, not to be confused with a popular breakfast item, the English muffin. Billiards then came to America. George Washington was said to be a fan of the game. He probably crossed the Delaware on occasions to attend a billiard game or two. Our 6th president, John Quincy Adams, was also a pool enthusiast. In fact, his request for a billiard table for the White House created loud criticism from others on Capitol Hill, bemoaning the incredible extravagance of such a lowly pastime. Billiardgate, circa 1825. The great French general Napoleon Bonaparte was also a pool fan. He played a game or two during his exile in St. Helena, where he probably tried to hustle his guards the way he hustled most of Europe. Small innovations appeared throughout the 1800s, such as the 2-piece cue in 1829 and the slate table bed in 1835. The modern billiard table was developed shortly after Goodyear first vulcanized rubber in 1839, and the invention of the celluloid billiard ball came in 1868, revolutionizing the billiards industry. The only drawback to the new balls was that they had a tendency to explode on impact. And even the game of pool has its ambassador. Enter Irish emigre Michael Phelan. In 1859, he won a prize match with a purse of $15,000, an astronomical amount for the time. Now, with this money, he established a table manufacturing company that exists to this day, the Brunswick Corporation. By the turn of the century, billiards competitions were international affairs, drawing established celebrities from around the globe. Mark Twain used to frequent these competitions and was an avid pool player himself, not to mention a fairly decent writer. The ballyhoo and flapper extravagance of the 1920s infected pool as well as the rest of the world. Publicity stunts were commonplace. The champion Ralph Greenleaf thought it would be a hoot to shoot a game of 8-ball from the air. I hope he doesn't scratch. Hollywood movie stars were also pool aficionados, both on and off the screen. W.C. Fields hustled pool in his vaudeville days, and the Three Stooges were found sticking around a pool table occasionally as well.
Well, certainly.
By the time of the Great Depression, polite society began to lose interest. Pool was considered a lower-class pastime. Then, in the 1960s, pool experienced a revival with the movie The Hustler. Paul Newman played Fast Eddie Felson, a cocky young player, and Jackie Gleason was Minnesota Fats, the master. The 1986 sequel, The Color of Money with Tom Cruise and Paul Newman, gave the game another boost in popularity. Today, pool is considered a professional sport, as well as a good way to pass the time with friends. Some of the best-known figures of the sport come to us through their championship and commercial exposure. Rudolph Wanderone, better known as Minnesota Fats, had a popular TV show called Celebrity Billiards, in which other greats showed up and showed off. Willie Moscone, a Hall of Fame member, began to dominate the game in 1941, and for 15 years thereafter defended his crown. Machine Gun Lou Butera is best known for his rapid-fire style of play. In 1973, he ran 150 balls in just under 21 minutes. That same year, he won his first World Championship. Women have a place in the Hall of Fame as well. Jean Belucas started competing when she was 7 years old. Former Swedish model Iwa Mataya won the US Open title in 1988, and Lorraine John Jones began as an 11-year-old and has stayed on top ever since. The world of billiards is open to all. See if you can't become one of the greats, either in front of your computer or in real life on your favorite table.